Hey, what's up? Dr. Chad with Energy Physio. Gonna show you something today. You've probably seen examples like this for, nutrition and all kinds of other things. The food pyramid, which has changed drastically thanks to the government over the last decade. What I want to talk to you about is like the functional pyramid for how we think about things as it relates to your rules, your boundaries, and the fun you get to have, okay? And it looks like this. We think about the things you need as a pyramid, where the bottom is functional mobility. All right? So any task you do requires a certain amount of functional mobility, right? Certain positions you're getting in, movements that you're moving through, whether they be dynamic or static, passive, whatever the case may be, there are certain amounts of functional mobility that are gonna make that easy to do, more difficult to do, or put you in a situation where your body is gonna compensate around a limitation in functional mobility that you have. And when your body compensates, that's when it's moving negatively away from the target movement in ways that are going to add stress somewhere in the body, and that's typically how we see pain start to generate over time. It's not necessarily something is going on where it hurts, but it's that some other place in your body is not functioning like it should, and then it's adding stress to the other places in your body, and that's where you end up stacking pain. The middle of this is functional strength. Okay, we've talked about this before, but these two things make up our physical capacity. How much is your body able to handle inside of a given task and for how long, okay? And so ideally, we have great functional mobility that allows us to add a lot of functional strength on top of that without movement compensation, without setbacks, without pain, without injury. Okay, and when we have a good foundation of functional mobility and a good foundation of functional strength, then up here we can add in skill. Now, skills are anything you're going to do, right? You can think of sport as a skill. Obviously, it is. And it's the highest level of physical activity. It requires certain amounts of functional mobility and functional strength to do it very well, without injury, without pain, without setbacks over and over again, right? And so skills are fun, okay? People love skills, okay? Pickleball, basketball, running, weightlifting, all the things that are fun need these things as a foundation, or it's just a matter of time before having fun is gonna create problems for you, okay? Think about it like money, okay? Money is fun. Okay, but you have to go to work. You have to go to work all day, every day of the week, 5 days a week, so you can enjoy your fun and your weekends, whatever, okay? But you can't not work and get to have enough money to have fun, okay? It's just the way it is. Doing the fun things always require that you lay the foundation so you can have the fun and be okay about it, right? Now, this is what we see when we work with people, is we actually have lots of skill going on, okay? People are having lots of fun, and they don't have quite as much functional strength as they should have, okay? That one's always in the middle. This one's always on the bottom, but people really don't have, we're gonna abbreviate this one, the functional mobility. You can see this thing is ready to topple over at any moment, okay? There's just no way around that. People's mobility really, really sucks. We see this every single day. People come in, they have ankles for bricks, okay? Bricks for ankles. They have functional strength that is not anywhere close to the demands of their lifestyle, and they continue to participate in lots of fun things, and then they wonder why they wake up stiff and painful and that they can't break themselves out of these cycles, even if they're doing all the right things, okay, for whatever their pain is, okay? They've had an MRI and it shows a herniation, or they have had an MRI and it shows they've got some fraying or small tears in their rotator cuff, or, they've got an x-ray and their vertebrae are starting to smash down and they get a diagnosis of degenerative disc disease. And so you got to recognize, if you get a diagnosis, you're going to get treatments for the diagnosis. Okay, and if you get some type of image, we're going to abbreviate this as advanced imaging, not artificial intelligence, but this includes anything, CTs, X-rays, MRIs, ultrasounds, anything that takes a picture of the inside of your body. If you have that, you're going to get treatments for that image, okay? And you might get the right treatments for that image, or you might get the right treatments for that diagnosis. But that might be the reason why you're not getting better, is because whatever's showing up here and here is probably not the root cause of your pain, and a lot of times it's probably not even the source of your pain. Just because you have a disc herniation, disc bulge, it doesn't mean that's the source of your pain. You have to match up mechanism of injury, you have to match up clinical presentation, you have to match up lifestyle limitations that is creating, and you have to match up the symptoms. Do the symptoms even match what that would be? I can't tell you how many times people come in, this is wild to me, and they say, yeah, I have a disc herniation. I've got pain down my leg. And when we start asking them questions or look at their MRI report, it's, well, the herniation is on the left, but the pain is down the right. And that's anatomically impossible to happen. It's just not the way you're put together. It's like flipping a light switch on that should turn on the kitchen, but your living room lights come on. That's not how it works. This switch turns on those lights, okay? Left herniation does not turn on the lights in your right leg, okay? And so you can get the right treatments for the diagnosis, but if the diagnosis is wrong, they're not the right things to do, okay? You cannot correctly treat an incorrect diagnosis. And more common than that is you cannot completely treat an incomplete diagnosis. So if all you have is a diagnosis or an image, that's incomplete. It has to match all these other variables to be 100% certain that that could even be possibly the source of your pain. But even still, source of pain and root cause of pain are not the same thing. If source of pain is the root cause, then there's no reason to answer the question of, well, why did that thing happen in the first place anyway? Because most of the pain that we see, especially, we're not going to blow this out to the entire universe of pain, but especially in the clinic, we're working with people who have pain that is a little more chronic in nature. It wasn't created through some traumatic injury, a car accident, a fall, a blowout playing basketball. These are not the types of people we're working with. We're working with people who are active, they're having a lot of fun, but they're stuck in these chronic pain cycles, and they're getting a lot of the right treatments for the diagnosis, and it just turns out the diagnosis is wrong or just very, very, very incomplete. Okay? So what we're looking at is, okay, how do we start to expand this out? How can we help people start to get the correct amounts of functional mobility for the tasks that they're doing? Okay? And now we're widening out their base so that even though we might still be lacking functional strength, if we widen the base out, it still supports the top in a better way. All right? Then we're looking at, okay, what are the demands of what you're doing? And what would be the best way to develop strength on top of your functional mobility to support the fun you're having? And the fun you're having might be lifting weights, and that's great, because this is just a game of progressive overload and doing it in great positions so you don't continue to perpetuate your problem. Okay, and so that's how we start to rebuild our strength on top of that. And as we keep chipping away at functional mobility, designing strength programs inside the boundaries and limitations of the mobility you have, that allows you to add the weightlifting, the skills, whatever the thing may be, and do it really setback free, okay? But if we're gonna do this correctly, we just have to understand how these things stack into your movement, okay? Because what we see over and over again is that when people move like this and it hurts, and we make them move like this, it doesn't hurt. We're not saying that moving like this is right, but we are saying it doesn't hurt, which makes us think it's more right than doing it like this, which is the way that it does hurt. Okay, so that's just simple. We're not trying to debate research, or we're not trying to debate, right versus wrong as it comes to medicine, and he said this and she said that. It doesn't matter. What we're saying is when people move like this, it hurts. And when people move like this, it doesn't. So we just think, okay, well, let's just make them move like this because it feels better. And there's a way that we do that. Okay, so how far over here can I get? Let's just take a look at the squat. We take a look at somebody's squat. It looks off target based on what we know to be movement patterns that tend to not hurt. And what we notice is that they squat, and their knees can't get over their foot very well. Their shin angle is really vertical because they've got a sticky ankle. Okay, this forces the hips way back and makes the torso really low. Now, sometimes we'll see this shape predominantly in somebody with really long legs and a short torso, and that's okay. There are variations to these movements based on body type and body shape, but at the end of the day, the more the ankle moves and the shin can move out over here, and I know all you guys are watching, oh, you can't go knees over toes. Forget about that for right now. It's not as important as you think. But it allows the knee to come forwards, the hips to sit more over the ankle, and the torso to be more vertical, which the spine is very well suited to stack load in this position, okay? It can handle load in this position pretty well. Let's get our vertical line out of here, okay? It can handle this position okay. The problem is the sticky ankle pushes the hip backs in a position that exposes limitations in the hip earlier in the depth of motion, okay? So now we're running out of mobility in the hip. And then what happens is we see the spine either round at the bottom or arch a lot at the top because the body wants to maintain center of mass by keeping the torso as vertical as possible. So what we found is that we take a look at the movement and we can see, oh, we can identify in the movement that this person probably has a limitation here, a limitation here. We also go ahead and check shoulders and several other things because we see those playing out in the way people move frequently on a daily basis. And then we can just go check those things. And we check the ankle and verify. Is it stiff? Yes, it certainly is. How does the hip rotate? How does it extend? How does it flex? And we can identify all the limitations there that are a reflection of showing up in the movement like we're seeing in their movement patterns. Then we can zoom in and we can work directly right here. Because we now know that if we can improve this position, it directly affects how the low back feels and functions, and people feel better. Because remember, you can't change the way you feel if you don't change the way you move. And we're not saying that because it's right. We're saying it just because we've done it a lot, and that's just what we see all the time. Okay, so if you're stuck in a cycle of pain and you've been getting all the right things, just branch out here for a moment mentally and assume, okay, well, how much has my treatments changed the way I live my life? Okay, have they changed your habits? Have they changed how you think about sitting in the desk and how you unglue your body out of the seated position at the end of the day? Probably not. Has all the exercises or treatments you've been given done anything to change the way you move, like intentionally? Okay, now when I bend over like this instead of how I was doing it because it feels better and it's better for me. Or I squat like this, or I pick things up like this instead of the way I was doing it. If your treatments for physical pain are not geared towards changing your lifestyle habits so that you can put your body in a better position to succeed throughout the day, at the end of the day, and into the next day, those are not the right treatments. And if your treatments haven't done anything to change the way you move, they haven't been the right treatments. Because if you don't change the way you move, you won't change the way you feel. So what this looks like is, okay, we've identified you're doing a lot of skill. Your functional strength is limited. There's no amount of strength that's too much. There's certainly an amount that's too little. And what we see is the functional strength play out is maybe somebody has functional mobility limitations, or maybe their mobility is okay for what they're doing. But they're doing things at such a high volume that their strength can't handle it. It's like volume-based things like running, year-round baseball. We solve these problems. Yes, we certainly want to address their functional mobility, but if you run a lot, or you throw a lot, or you do any sport that just reps, you just need to be way stronger than you are. And we're not saying weakness leads to pain. It doesn't. Because there's 98-year-olds who are weaker than skim milk, but they don't have pain. It's because their lifestyle isn't exceeding the threshold of pain that they have, right? If you're running and you hurt, you probably are missing some functional mobility. But if you were just way stronger, it would be more difficult for your body to stack into pain because you have a lot of resilience in your tissues, okay? So what this looks like is analyzing movement, figuring out what are the missing links in the functional mobility so we can start to expand the base of your functional pyramid, okay? Beyond that, now we can start to intelligently design strength programs that help you not only rehab and restore your functional mobility, but maintain it and progress it over time. And by the nature of how we do this, we can stay plugged into strength training programs and it not beat your body up every time you go lift weights. It actually just progressive overload and you get better over time without all the risk of, well, when I squat, my back freaks out, or when I deadlift, my back freaks out. We can solve that problem by starting here, intentionally designing programs with respect to what your limitations and your boundaries are so that you can make progress and stay plugged into your skill and not get wrecked every time you do it, okay? There's no reason to pay the price of pain every time you go have fun, because there are ways you can address your functional mobility very specifically and ways that you can incorporate that into your functional strength so your body doesn't freak out every time you do it, okay? So this is what it looks like. We zoom in. What do we need to do for the ankle? What do we need to do for the hip? What do we need to do for the pelvis? What do we need to do for the shoulders? And how can we very, very intentionally knit that into a functional mobility program built right onto the front of a functional strength program so that your body restores easier, faster, feels better, so that you can stay plugged into all the things that you think are fun without constantly having pain, waking up the next day paying the price, worried that if you do it, your body's gonna hurt, or worst case scenario, you just start removing things, okay? This is fear-based rehab, where it's like, that thing hurts, I'm just not gonna do it. That's not life, okay? It's not living. Okay, we want to keep as many things in here that you want in here. I don't care what's in here for you. If you want it in there, we'll figure out how to keep it in there. But ultimately, to keep it in there, you got to do the work. Okay, you can't make the money without going to work. Same thing. You can't have the fun without doing the work and expect for everything to turn out okay if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. Okay, so hope that's helpful for you. You need to know, like, hey, if my body hurts, I need to change the way I move. And there's only 2 reasons why people don't move like they should. They don't know how, which certainly can be the case many times. Or you have roadblocks in your body somewhere that are forcing your body to compensate. They're forcing you away from the target movement into some negative movement that is stacking up into stress somewhere in your body. Wherever you're feeling pain, that's not where the problem is. That's just where your body is adding the stress because of other things that aren't working, okay? You need to understand that. So, if you want help breaking out of a chronic pain cycle, let us know, all right? We got some links in our emails. DM on Instagram's a great way to get a hold of us and start a conversation about how we can build you a blueprint to get pain-free. You should definitely be doing that, okay? Just start the conversation. How do I start to understand what's going on in my body? How does my functional mobility reflect that? What are ways that I can improve my strength and resilience so that I can continue to have fun across my lifespan, so I don't continually have pain and get stuck in this pain cycle, okay? Been stuck in a pain cycle for a long period of time? Reach out. There's a lot of stones that you haven't turned over yet because you've been focused down here. Too focused on diagnosis or whatever your image showed. And remember, you can't correctly treat an incorrect diagnosis. So number 1, you need to make sure that that's correct. But even if this is correct, I guarantee you it's incomplete and you can't completely treat an incomplete diagnosis. We got to figure it all out. Sort out all the variables for you so that you can make a huge play on flipping your functional pyramid back in the right direction so that you can live long life with life in your years, not just years to your life, so you can feel better and actually have a system and a process that you follow to make sure you feel good all the time, not just solving the problem you have today. Let's solve the problem you have today in a way that helps you prevent all the problems in the future, because the truth is they're the same. Okay, reach out if you need help. We'll see you later.